This one I'm going to do on camera. It's the importance of the subject that I hit the reverse on the video. Around 2010, I was picked up by the San Jose Police Department on my way to work at a Shell gas station on a Saturday. I'm a union pipe fitter. It was an overtime day. I was looking at making time and a half to try to get ahead. I heard, "Dutton, put your hands behind your back." Well, obviously there's only one Dutton in a Shell gas station at 5 in the morning, and that's yours truly. So I was placed in handcuffs, and I'm sitting on the hood of a San Jose cop car, and a Hispanic detective with bug eyes in a cheap suit states that I'm on paper thin ice for some serious criminal charges. We go back and forth on this because I have no idea what he's talking about, and I'm being serious. As we're talking, a plainclothes female officer who looks like some skank off the street is tearing through my half-ton Chevy, which happens to be my living space. Keep in mind, 2010, we're still in an economic depression. And I say, "Is she with you?" And he just smiles and says, "Yeah, she's pretty good, right?" And I think to myself, well, pretty good is not the way I'd describe it. Long story short, the detective, who's now called in a half a dozen other patrol cars and officers who are surrounding me, states, "You've been cooperative, Mr. Dutton. We won't impound your vehicle." Now, I don't have enough to charge you at this time, but what we would like to do is have you evaluated psychologically at the county psychiatric facility. And at this moment, I know my day is shot. Actually, my hell is just beginning. I just don't know it yet. So I said, well, nothing I can say is going to change your mind. So if you don't mind, I'd like to put a call into my foreman and let him know I'm not going to be there today, which they allowed me to do. Now, as the beat cop is driving me to Valley Med, the county facility in Santa Clara County, he says, "Is there anything I could do for you? Roll the window down. I'm sorry about this. I didn't know anything about it, blah, blah." I said, my day is fucked from here on out. It doesn't matter what you do. I'm about ready to puke in the back seat anyway. Fresh air, no fresh air, doesn't matter. So once I'm brought to the psychiatric facility at Valley Med, I hear the steel door close behind me. What I don't know is once that door closes, it's a minimum 5150, 72-hour hold, no matter what, under the best case scenario. I'm going to speed this story up a little bit. 72 hours turned into 156 hours. I was there for over 5 days. I was being railroaded by the San Jose Police Department, my own trade union, whose name I won't mention at this time. That's not important. I was being done dirty. Now, at this time, I didn't know I was being gang stalked. I had never heard that word, predictive policing, and so forth. But I knew that somebody was turning the screws down on me, right? And that this was some kind of form of revenge or vendetta, which I'll explain at a later time. After 5 days goes by, I've seen a few psychiatrists, and they've given me written me up for a bad report, though I'm as sane as possible. My last day, a pock-faced, red-haired attorney by the name of Kim Peterson arrives and says, "I've petitioned to have you released today by hearing." Well, that did take place, but before I was released, I was process served with a civil complaint from my own labor union, trade union, in excess of $25,000 the day after Labor Day, 2010. Now, I'm released on a Friday. I'm supposed to appear the following Tuesday because it's a 3-day weekend. I'm going from one crisis to the next. I spend my entire time in the library preparing my answers to about that thick of documents. When I arrive in Judge Socrates Manukian's court in Santa Clara County, his mustache is twisted up like Salvador Dali. And he says, "Mr. Dutton, we have a third-party mediator, an attorney at no cost to you that's employed with the county. I suggest you take her services to help mediate this case." I said, "Absolutely, I will." And they did. Long story short, that civil case was dismissed. I didn't owe a thin dime to anybody. Now, I returned to work within about 4 days to another contractor. Ironically, it was a hospital job at Valley Medical for a out-of-town plumbing contractor. After a 40-hour work week, I lay my head down to go to sleep, and there's a knock on my window. I'm sleeping in my truck. It's the Campbell Police Department. They state they've had a notice of vagrancy and to produce some identification, which I do. And then I'm placed in handcuffs again. And guess who arrives? Detective Izquierdo with the San Jose Police Department in another cheap suit and another half dozen of San Jose cops with him. He says, "This time, Mr. Dutton, I got you." I said, "Detective, it sounds like a railroad case to me." He goes, "You can explain that to the San Luis Obispo County District Attorney." Now I realize I'm being extradited 400 miles south to San Luis Obispo County. So I am taken to the San Jose main jail on a Friday night after I've worked a 40-hour week with no sleep. I am handcuffed to a steel chair for 8 hours before processed. By the time I'm put in an orange jumpsuit, a city or county psychiatrist asked me, "Do you know what you've been charged with?" To which I respond, "No." She says, 2 felony counts of PC 420 domestic terrorism. My stomach sank. And she says, "That's not all. 1 misdemeanor PC 417 charge of brandishing a firearm." The thoughts are running through my head how many years in the penitentiary I'm going to do over this crime I didn't commit. At which time, it's now about almost 8 o'clock in the morning. I arrived about 9 p.m. It could have been earlier in the morning. I don't know the exact timing, but I do know this. When I was admitted with my bedroll, the other inmates were waking up for breakfast. Right? I'm totally exhausted. And the other fresh inmates are sitting on their bunk, almost in tears. So I sit down and have breakfast and try to pretend like I'm in my normal space. One thing I failed to mention, I snuck off a collect call to a bail bondsman. And I managed to convince him that I had the resources to post bail, which was $50,000. Now you pay 10% of that. In other words, it'd be $5,000. And because he had some kind of affiliation or empathy for union members, he gave me a $1,000 discount, which was nice of him. So essentially I had to pay $4,000 to post bail. I was there an hour, and a guy with a scar across his head, it came from his forehead through his mouth, across his nose, literally looked like he was hit in the face with an axe, asked me, "That was a short stay. Do you mind me asking what your charges are?" So he's basically kind of mud checking me. And I said, "All I know is it's something related to brandishing a firearm." So he simply nodded and said, "All the best to you." I heard Dutton roll it up, and I was back on the street again. Now I got my truck out of impound for another $300 to $400. And I checked myself into a motel room, and my nightmare begins. Now, those of you familiar with Nappy know that he's facing a similar charge, a PC 422, which is in the same domestic violence, or I should say domestic terrorism, not violence, family. It's the charge they love to throw at TIs because it's loosely worded, it has a lot of gray area, and it's easy to railroad us into the penitentiary. Long story short, it took 12 months and $20,000 to get that case dismissed for a crime that never was committed. And I can't tell you how many sleepless nights. Now, with Nappy, it's a different situation. They're going to likely railroad him into the state mental facility. But I'm telling you, this is the game that the system plays. You don't have to be a criminal. You don't have to be fucking around, running around, pushing dope, being the stereotypical loser. You can be straight and playing it with your nose clean. And if they don't like the way you comb your hair, they're going to drop the hammer on you.